goalkeeper always gonna
Good evening. This is a special edition of FCTV en clubdeportes.com.
Buenas noches, les damos la bienvenida. Esta es una edición especial en clubdeportes.com, FCTV. Yo soy Jorge Iturralde, pero este programa va a ser en inglés, así es que los voy a dejar en manos de Aries Silva, que les va a presentar a los Verde Masters del día de hoy.
Welcome to Verde Masters. This is a video podcast about Austin FC podcasters. I would like to introduce our guest for this evening. From left to right, we have with us Zach Graham from the Northend podcast, a podcast with 83 episodes. Please tell us where people can find you, Zach.
Anywhere you can get your podcast. We have a YouTube channel as well. It's at the Northend Pod. On Twitter, at the Northend Pod. And episodes twice a week in season and once a week in the off season.
In the middle, we have Hernán Gonzalez from the Top Flight Podcast and We Are Austin TV. Top Flight Podcast is a podcast with 103 episodes. Please tell us where people can find you.
Hey, just like Zach said right here, you can find us at wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Some fans have told me they have trouble. What's that on Overlook? What did Dylan say?
Mentioned something about
so we need to get that fixed. But, just like I said, YouTube as well. You got the We're Austin TV Fan Reactions YouTube channel, and then Top Flight is also a video podcast, so you can check us out there too.
And then last but not least, Eric McCoy from Futbol and Vivo, a podcast with 95 episodes. Please tell us where people can find you, Eric.
Right here on Club Deportes, on the Club Deportes YouTube channel. I had no idea we had 95 episodes. That's awesome little stat there, Aries. Appreciate that. Be sure to check out our Facebook group as well, just Futbol and Vivo Austin on there, and then on Twitter, at Futbol Austin. Or X, whatever it's called now.
It's Twitter.
Twitter. I agree.
Excellent. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. For tonight, I'm going to list out the rules for you. You will be provided a discussion topic or question, and the three of you will have 5 minutes to discuss. There is no allocated time for each speaker. You may provide your opinions freely, interrupt as needed, and counter with any arguments you may have. If you do not agree with anyone or anything, please do not hold back. We will begin from left to right, starting with Zach, and we will rotate after the first question on who goes. I will remind you whose turn it is next. Any questions?
No?
Let's do this.
Get it going.
Let's get started. Question number 1. Are you wolf in or wolf out? Let's start with you, Zach.
I don't think it's that binary for me. I don't think, certainly nobody who is staunchly wolf out is going to look at me and what I say tonight and say, oh, that guy's wolf out. So I guess if you have to choose, then I would be on the wolf inside. I've had various takes about Josh and his job status this year. None of them have been, let's fire him now. But during the period at the beginning of the season when we had no sporting director, I thought that was priority number 1. Let the new sporting director come in, assess the situation, and then go from there. Obviously now Rodolfo Borrell is installed. I imagine all three of us are pretty pumped about that still. And so now to me it's very much I'm trusting in Rodo in everything that he does, and that includes the timing of a potential Josh Wolf firing. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at is I'm trusting the guy who has the most soccer knowledge out of maybe anybody in MLS. The guy's resume is Barca, Liverpool, Man City, and now Austin. So I'm going to trust what he does and says until he provides me a reason to not trust what he says. And to this point, I think he has gone out of his way to say not only does he back this current coach, but he only took this job because Josh Wolf was the coach, which even to me, as somebody who's not staunchly Wolf out, was pretty surprising. But I like that at least he's presenting this unified front. So I would be surprised if he got canned before the end of the season. And if he does, I think the further context provided by the remaining 10 games will certainly shape how I feel once this season is over. But ultimately, I'm not losing any sleep or shedding a tear if Josh Wolf is fired. Because, again, I trust that Rodo knows what a good coach looks like. And if Josh isn't the guy for this job, he's going to make the move. It's just, when is that going to happen?
What do you think?
My turn. So I think Zach hit on a bunch of good points. Something that he didn't mention maybe or didn't really touch up on was, and I'm going to add on to it, was the fact that a lot of player performances have been poor. Josh Wolf can't get on the field himself and also a coach. I'm not going to sit here at this beautiful black table and defend Coach Josh Wolf because even though Rodo has come out, you mentioned him, even though Rodo has come out and shown support for Coach Josh Wolf, saying that he's going to back him 100%, you can't tell me that in his mind he's not having some doubts and saying, hey, we just ate 6 goals after a long break. That's concerning in any part of the world. But I will say this. I've had this take before on the Twitter Spaces, and I've said we need to give him at least to the end of the season because we all enjoyed Season 2. Season 2 was really good. Rodo came out and said that it was an overachievement. I mean, that must have hurt just a little bit. Coaching staff's maybe morale, maybe just a little bit, right? But ultimately, I think that we don't need the turmoil of having a new coach with these 10 games left because realistically, with the squad that we have, we're not shooting for any major trophy right now. We obviously need help. We obviously need more players that are going to contribute to this team positively. And like I said, to the end of the season and then just have a nice winter transfer window and try to assess everything that is wrong with this team right now because if you fire Coach Josh Wolf, that's not the only problem that this team has. Sure. This team has an age problem. This team has a goal drought problem, a defensive problem. And whether you like Coach Josh Wolf or not, it's not just him. Everybody is forgetting about Claudio Reyna. Nobody wants to say how bad he left this club. And just like I said, I'm not going to sit here and be a Wolf defender because you just cannot defend the recent things that have been happening this season. Injuries also, season of injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fact of the matter is that how things are happening, it's not helping Coach Josh Wolf. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season, we see a new coach, especially after what happened with Portland.
Yeah, so I actually agree with both of you guys. I know it's not the Club Deportes way agreement, but no, you guys are talking a lot of sense. I think that the actual squad itself doesn't really get brought up enough. I mean, you have one DP that's actually contributing right now. Your U22 signings have not done much of anything either. Those are important roster spots. When they've gone out and gotten a big signing from South America, like a Johan Valencia, pretty much a bust, I think you can say at this point, or at least he's not the player that they thought he would be. And so, yeah, for me, I just look at the actual talent level of this squad, and I just don't think it's really good enough. I mean, they're I think a mid-pack team in the Western Conference, and that's about where Josh Wolf has them.
I don't want to throw any shade at any player or disrespect any player, but Valencia, he was brought here a champion.
Absolutely.
And he has only been a bench player. You know what I'm saying? He has been benched by Danny Pereira, and also one of the things that Wolf has received a lot of criticism on is the fact that he's chosen his son over Alex Ring, other players, whatever. But can we sit here and honestly say that Joan Valencia is better than Owen Wolf, even at the level that people think Owen Wolf is? I mean, maybe because he hasn't got that consistency on the field. Joan Valencia is a player that needs to integrate himself to the squad, and he hasn't been able to do that. But, I mean, if it's not Danny Pereira, Owen Wolf, or Alex Ring in that conversation, I mean, our current midfield options are scarce, if that's the proper word to use. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you look at the bench, you have Sofiane Jafal, you have Valencia. Who else do we have? I mean, any of those, maybe Sofiane because he's young and we know that he can create. And that also falls back maybe on the recruitment that Claudio Reyna and Josh Wolf had, and that's where the fault comes into Josh Wolf because he had some hand in it. But if I'm not mistaken, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, Verde Masters here. In the winter, Claudio Reyna left us to hang and dry.
100%.
Didn't he leave us to hang and dry?
Not agree with that anymore.
That's what Josh said a couple weeks ago.
So,
right?
yeah, exactly.
we didn't get certain signings over the line. We didn't get departures completed that we
Yeah.
were trying to do. And who knows,
Yeah.
is that Alex Ring? Is that part of the reason why? That's one of my biggest questions is what happened with Alex, whether it's between him and Josh, him and the club, or any combination of that. I don't think we'll ever know.
Now,
But what happened there?
Maybe a bit of a solution. I'm sure we have just a couple more minutes on this Josh Wolf topic, Wolf in or out. Let's say Austin FC has the cojones to say, you know what, Josh Wolf, here's the door. Thank you very much. We appreciate your service, just like they did to, I'm not going to name him, Diego Fagundes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And let's say Davey Arnaud comes in. Bali mentioned, shout out my boy Bali. Bali mentioned this months ago, and I think I recently heard some Moon Tower talk about it. They said, what does the scenario look like if Davey Arnaud steps in and, takes over for Josh Wolf? But, I mean, is that something that we would entertain
I don't think it
at
would
this
change
table?
things much. I don't think it would change things much. I think they're waving us out
They're
here.
cutting us off. They know him. They know.
Thank you. We know that the topics around here can get quite heated. Can you please refrain from banging on the table? I know that you guys are very passionate fans, but
My bad.
that messes up our audio.
It's because Wolf,
Thank
Wolf.
you.
Inspired by my co-host. All
All right, let's continue. Let's continue with the second question. What is your opinion and expectations with the hire of our new sporting director, Rodolfo Borrell?
Sure
We start with Hernán, please.
Okay. Starting the question, what are my expectations of Rodolfo Borrell? I expect him to 180 this team. He came in from Man City, from winning the treble. You're coming into that MLS to plugging it in. Yes, the rules are different, but my expectations couldn't be higher for this guy. And also, hearing him speak, hearing him talk about the game, hearing him talk about what he knows, where he comes from, what he's done, and how he sees this club, I think the guy knows what he's talking about. Whenever I see him on screen, the guy looks like a freaking great white shark. That's what I said. It looks like he has just no light in his eyes. He's just here to perform and execute, and maybe that's one of the reasons why we were heartbroken when we saw Diego go away, because Rodolfo Borrell ultimately is the guy that gives the thumbs up for these things. So, like I said, my expectation for this guy couldn't be higher, and I hope that he holds himself to those expectations, because I don't think you get to a club like Man City. I don't think you have a resume like Rodolfo Borrell's without having those expectations for himself. I think there was an interview where he talks to Fabregas, and he says, if you want to go pro, this is how you have to hold yourself. This is what you have to make yourself do. There's sacrifices. And if he's preaching that, I'm sure he's been through that. He's lived through that. So this guy, I just said it. I mean, he's.
Well, here's the thing. I think more than anything, this Borrell coming in, I think, is proof that this team has genuine ambition to win an MLS Cup.
Yeah.
I think more so than anything else we've seen, right? Because you don't go after someone like Borrell. He's not going to be around if you're just looking to, scrap into the playoffs, 4th, 5th seed, win a round or two, and then go home. No, you sign Borrell because you have ambitions to win it all. And I think that's the clearest indication of that. One thing I will say, and I'm over the moon about the signing, one thing I think we need to be a little careful on is that he's never done this specific job before.
That's true.
So, ultimately, I think he's going to be great at it. I think the guy knows football more than anyone. But, yeah, I think we just have to keep an eye on it. If a couple signings start not working out, maybe just that total, bowing down to Borrell. Hold him accountable, basically.
That's really my only doubt, is that the fact that he's never really done this, but from what he said in the past is that he's paid attention to the MLS. Now, he could also just be saying that. We can't take what these guys say to 100%. Sometimes they don't say everything how it is 100%, right? So hopefully it is true what he's been saying. And, just like you said, bro, if some signings don't work out, for sure, we should definitely question him, hey, what's going on? You're supposed to be this guy. But I think we obviously haven't seen anything of what he's going to do for this club yet, because his position, I think it's something that affects long-term more than anything.
Well, one of the things that you guys brought up on Top Flight during that stretch at the beginning of the season where it was 9 games without a win, whatever it was, one of the worst stretches in the club's short history, was you guys were who is holding these players accountable? Who are they, for lack of a better term, who are they scared of?
Exactly.
Right? And putting all that responsibility on Josh Wolf when that was not what he was hired to do clearly took a toll on him. And now that Roto is here and made that big splash move, right? Like, I don't think you're going to find an Austin FC fan that was happy that Diego Fagundes is no longer a member of this team.
There's a couple.
Sure.
There's a couple.
Sure.
Nah,
but I think
very few.
I think understanding the other side of it and why the move was made, right? And, like, we can all be upset, of course, about the emotional ties we have to Diego, and those will never leave us. Like, Diego's never going to leave our Verde hearts. The guy scored the first goal. He's ingrained in this community more than...
You can't think Austin FC without thinking that pink-haired, blonde-haired kid, Diego Fagundes.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Exactly. But the one person that I don't want considering any of our emotions and feelings in the decisions for this club and building this roster is Rodolfo Borrell.
And we just got out of a relationship with a sporting director that put all of his emotions into the sport. I mean, he went to war for his son. Credit to him.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, him as a father, I know other fathers would do the same for their kids.
Go
But
blackmail? Is that what you're saying?
you know what I'm saying? I mean, for sure. But Rodo Borrell, exactly. He just strikes me as that cold-hearted guy. And we did the numbers. Shout out to Peach.
Yeah, shout out Peach.
He did the numbers in a best-case scenario situation, right? If we get all the money from Diego, because you know how it goes up to, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if we don't sign memo for that option, you're looking at close to $2 million in the MLS to work with. Of course, if everything goes bad, goes negative.
So I know we're coming up to the buzzer here on this topic, but just staying on the salary cap for a second, to go a step further, you said right around $2 million if all of that conditional GAM comes back to Austin. And I hope that Roto negotiated those triggers to be, hey, if Diego's on the team next year, we get that allocation money. But the rest of the salary cap, the guys who we know the official free agents, right? There's 5 or 6 other guys that are not MLS free agents but can come off the books. And if you decline all of those options, and this is assuming that Rodney Redis and Johan Romagna come off the books, which is unknown, I think, at this point. But if all of those guys come off, it can be, I think, $4.81 million in cap space, whether it's actual cap space or either type of allocation money. So $2 million, getting you to that 4.8 number, you basically created a second free agency for yourself with this trade. So again, from the business side, I think we can all understand it. That doesn't make it hurt any less.
That argument, the whole business side, come on, how are you going to cut it right there?
You have to get an actual buzzer or something.
Keep going.
And that argument, the whole business side, got a lot of criticism on Twitter, social media, Instagram comments. I read it all. I talk to so many fans. Fans talk to me. There was a lot of criticism on that, saying that's not how you run a club. You have to listen to your fans. There's been things that have happened in this club that the club has listened to the fans. Cecilio Dominguez, the club listened to the fans. They lost a lot lot of money on that.
That was an off the field issue.
The club listened to the fans, and they got rid of him. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna say I personally, my opinion on this is the fact that Rodo Borrell came here to cook. He came here to make moves, right? And I think you said this, like if I'm not mistaken, I think there's some fans out there that are saying rebuild this team. And when they start rebuilding, they're like, no, not like that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And just one last thing I'm going to say, and this is what Brian told me, and Brian had to break it down for me. He was like, and Football Critic, shout out to him as well. He said, if you go down the line of the best players we have, he was our best asset to sell. Nobody else is going to buy whatever we have at this club.
No one wants Rodney Redis.
Nobody wants Rodney Redis. Nobody wants Emi Rigoni except in Brazil, where they probably want him on a loan.
Yeah.
If you wanted to start rebuilding this team, if you want to start winning games again, having that energy that you felt in 2022, sometimes we have to make sacrifices.
Absolutely.
Hi. Gentlemen, I remind everybody that we all have families and jobs that we have to get to. So if we do not time the questions, we will be here until tomorrow.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Great. Next question. And this time we are going to go over to Eric. What were your expectations going into the 2023 Austin season originally?
I think on our on our Futbol and Vivo season preview show, I think I had Austin FC finishing 4th, which sounds a little optimistic as things currently stand. But I really had high expectations for Gyasi Zardes. I think he is finally starting to show signs of promise, injuries notwithstanding. But yeah, I thought they would be 4th. Kind of don't think they're going to get there. I still think this is a team capable of making the playoffs. A little worried with how that's looking after the St. Louis game, but overall, yeah, I mean, they're not too far off of where I had projected them going into the season.
Yeah, I remember very clearly that we were standing out on Verde Hill, and this was the first time. This might have been the first time that you and I met, H.
Yeah, we met.
I jumped on that. You guys did a little preseason, fan reaction there, and I said I think the expectation is top 4. I think it's a fine season if you're 5 to 7, and below 7. I thought was a objectively bad season, and we could very well end up below the 7 seed, and you could still get into the playoffs with the new format, but. I think, first of all, you mentioned I think, predicted 4th. I was chugging all of the Verde Kool-Aid. I had us in 2nd again. And so, again...
Got to look at that XG table from last year, man.
You got to look at the XG, and you got to look at maybe the best injury luck I've ever seen for a team in a season. I'm sure I'm missing some, like obviously Johan Romagna was out of shape to start the year, soft tissue injuries, gets the unfortunate concussion when he is finally healthy. So, some bad luck there. Hector Jimenez was out for a while, but I love Hector. We didn't miss him that much. And so that was another thing, not just the underlying numbers, was just that the injury luck that we had, and we're having... at best, average injury luck this year, but it really feels like we're having one of the worst injury seasons.
Yeah.
I look at some other teams. Toronto came in. They had like 9 guys out or something like that. So it's not only us, but it sure feels like it's happened to all of our best
The fact
players.
that so many injuries have happened to the defense, I think really hurts. Because that was an area going into the season where I think me and a lot of other people pointed out, like, this is a thin area of the squad. And so to have so many injuries hit the defense, I think was real. It's really been a struggle.
My expectations, I clearly remember, were very high. We were coming out of that beautiful second season. Revenge was in our hearts. Ruben Gabrielson makes that post at the end of the season where he's just like angrily staring into LAFC raising the cup with their kids, and he makes that emotional caption. But then there was things that started happening with the Austin FC offseason, in the Austin FC offseason, and like the Neymar GIF meme where he's like, you know what I'm saying? That was that. I felt like that was me going into the season because we had the whole Reina situation unfold right at that time. Gabrielson has to leave due to some family personal things. That was a huge blow. I don't think that we knew how much that was going to affect this team in the long run. We're seeing it right now, obviously with all the injuries that went to the defense. But I remember top 5 finish, because I felt like coming into the season, Juicy Diora was going to have another great season. I know a lot of MLS pundits were calling him out, saying there's no way he can replicate that. And you said you were drinking Verde Kool-Aid. I was looking at things through the Verde glasses.
Sure.
And I really thought we were going to roll into 2023 and build off of what we did in 2022. And a lot of the criticism that Wolf gets from the fans that want him out is the fact that he completely just deleted everything from the hard drive that we had done in 2022, and it felt like we were playing a new system, playing a new formation. You see Juicy comes out and he says, we like to play that 4-3-3 because we almost know it by memory, and then we see that back 5, we see the back 3, and it's just so many things that we've been trying. Danny Pereira even comes out and criticizes the way that we play, just maybe a little bit. I wouldn't say criticize, but he just talked about it just a bit. But, going back to the main question, my expectations were high, obviously. They were very high. That 2022 season maybe had us a little bit dazed and confused, a little bit of an Austin theme. But now we still find ourselves in a playoff position, and we could still finish in that top 5.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not a total disaster right now. Yeah. It really isn't.
It feels like it, though. You got to be real.
Yeah. I feel you. Yeah. After conceding 6 goals, man, it never feels good. But yeah, no. To be honest, they're not that far off where I thought they'd be, and when you consider the injuries. Yeah, I'm not too surprised with where the team stands right now.
If we can rewind to before Sunday, as tough as it is, you're looking at, I believe, 50-plus games missed between Diego and Seba and Leo and Julio and Owen for the World Cup, and Danny's missed a couple, and Emmy's missed a couple, and, to still be in 5th coming into Sunday, I thought was maybe just short of impressive. Maybe that's too strong of a term, but, to your point, it could be way worse with the guys that we've missed throughout the season.
I know Aries is asking the questions, but I got a question for the Verde Masters.
All right.
Is the West just a lot worse this season than what it was last season? Is that the reason why we've been able to hold on? Because Seattle is in a top 4 position, but they have been atrocious. I follow my G's at Rave Green TV and House of Sounders, and I feel like every week they're criticizing Seattle. And Brian Schmelzer, that's the name of the coach, right? But I look at the table, and I still got to go like this.
Yep.
I still got to go like this. And I think that's a testament at the fact that our conference this season is weaker than what it was last season.
Man, I saw LAFC fans talking about, is Gerundolo the right guy for the job after they have a couple bad weeks?
Dude.
It's every fan base, man. It's every fan base.
Gerundolo. Nah, he's actually a good coach, man.
Thank you. Next question. What is your opinion with our player movement so far this year, both newly arriving and departing players? This time we will start with Zach.
I guess I need to think back to who we got. And are we considering the off-season additions, not just the mid-season ones?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess I'll start up top with Chassis Zardes, because $800K through those first, 2 months of the season was looking real dicey. But now I believe if you take away PKs, he's leading Austin FC in goals scored. So since that May game, I believe it was in Seattle when he scored his first goal. 6 goals now on the season. I think he's kind of coming into his own with this team. I still am flabbergasted how he did not tap that goal in the other night. That was I think all three of us could maybe have done that, and it's usually not appropriate to say that about professional athletes, but tough one there. Other additions, Leo, I think we haven't seen enough of him. 12 games, started all 12. I think he's our best center back.
Big price tag on him too. We're talking about 1.8
on Leo to acquire him. You got Lundqvist from Houston.
A lot of gam.
He is. I am not upset if we don't pick up his option this year. I'm not upset if we keep him for depth.
I agree with that.
You know, I guess thinking about other guys that we brought in, we were standing out on Verde Hill being like, yo, that's Amro Tarek. You remember look how big he is.
Bro, can we talk about Tarek real quick? Super quick. Tarek, when he was training with Austin FC, of course you had to make a reach to like look at his highlights and say, oh, this guy's going to be good or whatnot. Yeah. But I remember I was making comparisons to Sergio Ramos.
I remember you saying.
You know what I'm saying? And I know whenever you hear that, everybody, you're like, this guy's nuts or whatever. I mean, I was probably, you were
close,
reaching.
man. You were close.
I was reaching for that. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, the absolute flop that signing was. And Jorge actually criticized that signing heavily. You know, he asked John Schwolf, he was like, why did you bring a player that you didn't even see a big sample size whenever you bought him back in, 2018? You know, so, I mean, that's a really good question. Why did we acquire him? And Josh Wolf answered with, like, hey, he's the guy that fit the budget. We just pulled the trigger. You know what I'm saying?
Not exactly a ringing endorsement.
It's also evidence of why Josh Wolf should not be the sporting director.
100%.
Amro Tarek was the guy that we brought in off the scrap heap.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think overall, you'd have to say the new signings have been pretty good. I agree with, like, Giassi, I think is starting to show potential
Zardes?
now. Yeah.
Who else we got?
Zardes, Leo.
Memo?
Memo, just one game so far, but his underlying numbers are actually pretty decent.
That's pretty good. That's not bad.
So I actually think he's going
Memo,
to be all right.
If Memo scores that goal with Burki saved it or whatever, the next day, fans are tatting his name.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Fans are tattooing his name. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, I'm totally kidding. But, I mean, I think he had an okay set of minutes. He didn't play a full 90. He played, like 65 or something like that. But he was involved the first half. He had some good moments in the second half.
When you consider how long it takes players actually, Wolf to even trust him to get a chance to feature in this team, the fact he's going out and starting at the first opportunity, I think says a lot about just kind of his overall football intelligence.
He looked like a guy who just got here.
We've had more departing, I think, players than actual signings. I mean, the only big ones I can think of is just Memo, Zardes, Rigoni of recent history. We let go of Felipe.
What do you think about Matt Hedges?
Matt Hedges, how am I forgetting? I mean, maybe because he had such an unforgettable performance for his debut start.
I'm a little skeptical of Hedges, right? He's an older center back.
I am too.
And he wasn't even featuring, I don't think, super regularly for Toronto, and Toronto are not good. Yeah, so that's usually a red flag.
He was injured a little bit during the season, and then I'm fairly convinced, again, when we're getting into the fan fiction here, but Tom Bogert was talking about right before the transfer window opened up that everybody in Toronto, there was nobody he was talking to that wasn't like, get me the hell out of here. And I think Matt Hedges may have been one of those guys.
They're still getting rid of players.
Exactly.
They're still to right now.
They're trying to move on from Bernie.
Somebody might leave tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. You never know.
No, I just want to say two things, bro. Number one, never mind. Go ahead real quick.
No, I mean, I think that you're spot on. Like, he wasn't super inspiring the other night, but who was?
Small sample size.
Yeah,
Small sample
exactly.
size.
Exactly.
I just have a quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
Felipe, from a vibes perspective, is Felipe missed on this team? I feel like just like the whole locker room vibe, just the culture of the team seems to have taken a hit without Felipe.
I have a question for you. Give me one player from the League's Cup that did to Messi what Felipe did. Felipe had this. Felipe had this.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
He had this. You know what I'm saying? And of course he did not bring football to the pitch. Whenever he came, even though
only against Atlanta.
Even though he did
really
get goals,
good in that game.
whenever Felipe came on the field, you know he was a closer. That guy was there to control the rest of the game.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Sorry. Okay, he was there to control the rest of the game. And just going back to one of the things that I was going to say was Aries' main question, what do I think about the movement of the players? I'm more disappointed with some of the contracts that we gave out, with the amount of money that was thrown around. You know, I think we had an average transfer season for sure. This one that just ended was below average. It was all right. But my concern is some of the contracts that we gave out.
Yeah.
Because they've put us in a position where we've had to make difficult decisions like Diego Fagundes, and it ultimately has to do a lot with how we've handled some of the contract negotiations and renewals. I don't want to count anybody's pocket, but there are some players on this team that you look at their production and you look at the MLSPA sheet and you're thinking, man, that's just not right. And you compare it to other players in MLS and you're thinking like, man, I wish I had that guy on my team. He's making that much. Sheesh. Just one example. I mean, Ethan Finley is a guy that is not one of the highest paid players on this team, and yet he's one of the highest producers. Mm-hmm. I'm not just trying to plug him in because he's my G, but Ethan is Ethan.
Messi,
you know?
Thank you. We will move on now to the next. You may have seen social media today and this week with Cascante and the performance that he had during the past match. I want your guys' opinion on how his season has been, how his positioning has been, and what kind of match he had this past match. And we're going to show you a quick clip.
Another Cascante video.
Yeah, I seen this. Nobody picks up the run, bro. Julio's over there in the edge. What's he doing there, bro? He needs to be in the middle, dog.
That is
He's probably the second tallest person on this team, bro. What are you doing, bro? Stu on that one, too. He's at that post. He's at that post.
Listo.
Tough.
We will begin this question with Eric.
Yeah, the thing with Cascante, I mean, he was not good against St. Louis. There, the answer to what was he doing there, I have no idea what he was doing there. I can't answer that question. That's too tough, Aries. Come on, man, go easy on me. I think Julio Cascante is a decent enough, like, kind of complimentary center back. Like, if you play him alongside someone like Gabrielson, I think Vicen earlier in the season, I think he can be okay. But when he's asked to kind of be the dominant kind of like alpha center back there, I just don't think he's quite up to that. What do you guys think?
I actually think it might be the opposite. I think when he is the center back one, and obviously when he is that, we're having issues, whether it's injury, yellow card suspension, what have you. But I feel like the worst Julio performances have come next to what we perceive as a more talented or a better center back, whether it was Matt Beasler in season 1, Ruben Gabrielson last year, like against Seattle, like that was one of the worst Cascante games. And now he's sitting next to Matt Hedges. We haven't seen him next to Leo a ton this season. Now he's next to Matt Hedges and he stands out in a negative way again. I can't tell you what he was doing on that particular set piece. It didn't look like Tim Parker was his mark because I don't remember. It might have been Josh Yarrow on the far side that he followed, but it looked like Austin FC's in some sort of zone there. And even if you are in some sort of zone, you got to have body contact with everybody who's coming through your zone, or else you're just creating a lane, and that is true in many sports. I was more concerned with his one-on-one defense because I think he's got to be able to do better individually and then help his teammates out. Like, I'm no soccer savant, far from it, but I know you got to force Nico Giacchini towards the end line there and not let him cut back across your body. So it was a tough night, and that may be putting it nicely.
I want to start with the bad news for Julio, and then I'm in with the good news on my take. The bad news is that he has a performance like this every 4 or 5 games. He'll have 1, 2, 3 good games, or he'll do good things, and then he'll have the 4th to that 5th game, something like this. He doesn't always have these kind of performances, but he has one of these every 4 or 5 games. We all know this. Brian talks about it all the time. You know, Julio has one mistake in him every now and then, right? Now, one thing that I do want to say, I guess this is maybe in defense of Julio Cascante, is the fact that this guy has not had a consistent partner in his whole career at Austin FC. If you look at all the successful center-back partnerships in the history of football, I'm going to start off with my favorite, Sergio Ramos and Pepe. They played together for years, and they ended up winning 3 Champions League back-to-back. I don't want to compare those guys to the ones exactly here, but I want to just compare the camaraderie, the partnership, the friendship that goes into it. Whenever Gabrielson was here, I think that's when we saw the best of Julio Cascante. They were making ride-along videos. They were making content together. We don't see that anymore because Julio has played with Beasler. Julio has played with Romagna. Julio has played with Hedges, with Lil Vicen, who is 14 weeks out. Kip Keller, Alex Ring. I mean, Julio has been the only consistent center back, and I think because we see him all the time, people think, oh, well, how come you're not better? But my level of center back is nowhere near the level of center back that Julio Cascante plays right now. You know, I played, whatever kind of level. But you have to have a good relationship, not only with the goalie, but with the guy playing center back with you, because you have to put trust in that guy, and he has to trust you. If we're playing center back, if we're playing center back, my fault. You're good, brother. If we're playing center back, my bad. I actually spit on Zach, my bad. If we're playing center back, I have to trust you, bro, and you have to trust me. You know, we have to be brothers. Yeah. You know, you have to be Goku, Vegeta.
There you go.
Vidic, Ferdinand. You know what I'm saying? And same with you, bro. Absolutely. You know, we have to have that friendship, that relationship where we can all say, oh, he don't got this, I'm going to back him up in that. And I think that that's been lost with Julio this season and other seasons, the fact that his partner keeps changing and changing and changing and changing.
Yeah, name a good team, and I guarantee you they probably have a consistent center back pairing, almost always. I mean, they'll rotate, good teams rotate up front, wingers, strikers, whatever. Center backs, you want consistency.
And one more thing, as much as I like Julio on and off the field for Austin FC, I don't think he's the best center back for this club. I know that there's better out there. I know that the resources that we have can be allocated in a way to get a better center back. But I think that he hasn't been able to show the best of his abilities, the best of himself for Austin FC. And like I said, the best Julio we saw was in 2022 when he had that consistent partnership with Gabrielson. I mean, last season he was contributing in goals defensively as well. This season he was up there too. So
well, and that's what I was going to say about Julio. Is one of the best things he brings is on the offensive side, whether it's on set pieces or progressing the ball up the field. And we didn't see a ton of the latter on Sunday. But if he's not providing that offensive threat, he's not good enough defensively to be a game in, game out starter. So for me, assuming health of everybody, the center back pairing going forward is Matt Hedges and like.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm sorry. It has to be Julio and Leo because Matt Hedges is coming in as that new guy. Sure. To me, Julio is. I mean, after Leo Vicen and just on paper, I think Julio Cascante is second to Leo. But on the field, just by knowing the system that we play, Wolfball, I think Cascante is the best guy that we have on the field in the center back position. Of course, this guy is slow. They back him up all the way, as in that game that we saw. But he has good moments. We can't lie that this guy doesn't have any good moments. To just throw him out is a bit unfair. But just knowing the fact that he isn't the best center back that we can have for this club, I mean, that says a lot.
Down the road, he might be replaced, but Hedges, I don't know.
I don't know about Hedges. He to me, Hedges is a little bit too quiet, too soft, and that's exactly what Julio is. We need a good cop and a bad cop. We can't have two good cops doing the same job.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just a figure of speech. I know there's a lot going on with police and stuff. We need good cops everywhere. But just in a figure of speech in center backs, we need a ruthless guy and we need a sweetheart. And I feel like we have two sweethearts right now playing center back.
That's it.
A spit take.
Thank you. We move right along, and please keep the emotions down, everybody. I know these are hot topics, and Eric, we want to hear more from you.
You
please.
said don't hold back in the rules.
Thank you. Next question, and this will be going towards Hernán. Hernán, what are the most positive and the most embarrassing thing that you have done, that you have seen the team do this year? And we'll have an extra minute.
The most positive and the most embarrassing thing I've seen the team do this season? That's a question. The most positive thing, I'm going to have to come back on that one. Maybe the most embarrassing thing. The most embarrassing thing was probably the St. Louis performance. I mean, we conceded the most goals in club history. The way that we played was terrible. Another TikTok was made of us. I mean, but we also got Mazatlan. Mazatlan was absolutely embarrassing. You know what? Mazatlan has to be it, because not only did we suffer mental and emotional abuse, if you pay... I'm being serious. Mental health is real. Mental health is real. If you pay attention with TikTok and Instagram comments, stuff like, mainly on TikTok, the fan reactions of that night absolutely blew up. And we had fans from all over the Western Hemisphere, really, because it was all Latin population and a lot of Mexican American population commenting in. But we received a lot of criticism from a lot of places because they criticized a lot of Austin fans for supporting Austin FC instead of the Mexican team, which I think is outrageous if I'm from Austin myself.
Yeah.
They criticize us for criticizing Mazatlan, who the world knows is bad. You know what I'm saying? Like,
the owner didn't seem to know.
You can't blame us for thinking that we had a chance against one of the worst teams in Mexico. We got criticism for that, and really just a lot of the fans' takes that night got a lot of pushback. And so I think the Mazatlan game has to be the biggest. And Violet!
I was gonna say, I think it's Violet. I think it's Violet.
Fruit there.
Get out of my head!
Yeah, I mean Mazatlan. You know, at least they had like their regular complement of players.
Violet
it
has
wasn't
to
the
be.
replacement level players that were coming
Violet,
in,
bro.
playing in
right
a different
there.
country. You know that well, I guess technically Mazatlan
Positive?
too.
I mean, what's about? We have Violet as a negative, Mazatlan, the whole League's Cup as a negative.
yeah.
Cup performances maybe as a
How
negative.
about winning in Seattle? I think that was a big deal. I think
That's our
that was
positive?
pretty. I think that was a pretty
That's our
big
positive?
positive.
That was part of mine. What I was going to say is that whole stretch in like mid to late May and early June when you're missing Saba, you're missing Diego, and then the process of getting both of those players back. Credit to the coaching staff because you're playing with that back five, you're shifting things around and trying to make adjustments to keep this season afloat. And credit to the players who played, some of them out of position of playing. Huge credit to Alex Ring this season
for sure.
for playing how many minutes in the midfield? Less than 90.
Especially when he's got 1 foot out the door already.
Exactly.
Basically.
And the guy, you would have to show me some video evidence of him not giving his all this year. Like, I love that man.
Yeah.
And so I think that span to me was the most positive point of the season from like a team building, like the trajectory of the season from a standpoint looking at that. In terms of my fan emotional side, I mean, 6-0 aggregate against Houston and Dallas in the span of 4 days. You can't top that.
That's tough. There's been a lot.
It's been an up and down season, man, and we still have a lot of soccer to play.
Yeah, I think the stretch you're referencing there was so good. When the formation changed, I think that was Josh's best bit of coaching that he's had. I think maybe even
He could do a little more of that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of that flexibility that we haven't often seen from him. But I think showing that flexibility during a stretch where you had so many key injuries and they just not even just keep your head above water, but go draw in Portland, go win in Seattle. Exactly. I just think that was so impressive.
I'm gonna say. Maybe this might be this isn't a hot take. FCTO has been the most positive thing from this club this season. You know what I'm saying? My G, Aries, I saw that he has the MLS Next Pro badge. That caught my eye immediately because I was like, supporting the boys. I've never seen that on a freaking jersey. But that team has been a huge, a huge supply of copium for Austin FC fans because we're able to go to those games and cheer on the likes of Cristobela, the likes of Anthony Deanda, Micah Burton, CJ Fodry, who now made it into the first team, Damian Loss, just to name a few. That team is star-studded with kids. And also Danny Pereira's international call-up. I felt really good at that time. I was really happy. And John Gallagher's all-star moment. Yeah. I was really proud of that guy. I was really happy for him because that was earned. You know what I mean? Like, that's a guy that you don't think is going to make it to the All-Star game. I'm sure he didn't think he was going to make it to the All-Star game. Probably not. And he, like every Irishman, just fought his way in there, bro.
I mean, his trajectory is just so impressive to go from kind of like journeyman, just kind of afterthought striker to all-star left back. Yeah, man, that's incredible. And definitely seconded on the Austin FC too. Those games are fun. It's a little bit different vibe than the Austin FC games, but cheap tickets, cheap concessions. It is awesome.
Good beer,
great beer.
Good beer.
It's so much fun.
There's always somebody that says, where is this at? And it's like every week people are just discovering those games more and more. And I think it's a really good way for families to try to like integrate into the Austin FC community because not everybody can afford some of the high ticket prices.
Absolutely.
And when you take a 5-year-old to a game, they see green and black, they just think it's the club. They just think it's the team. Yep. They go to school that next day and they say, my parents took me to an Austin FC game. What? No way. You were there too? And the whole time they saw Micah Burton run around 90 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a good way to get the family integrated to the Austin FC community.
See Mike at Q2 soon enough.
Oh, sources.
Excellent. Next question, gentlemen. Captain Drusi, what is your opinion on his performance as both captain and as leader and as a player this season? We will start this one with Zach.
That's tricky.
I really got to start with this one. Okay, I'll give it my best shot. It is tough to watch because I don't think you can, with a straight face, say that Seba has stepped into a traditional captain's role, right? I think we all know that the guy leads by example, but I think when you're wearing that armband, I think it has to be more than that. It has to be some visible physical leadership. And I think there's probably a little bit more to how he got that armband, what the road was in the offseason to that happening. We may never know, but I think it's pretty clear that he's not up to the level that a guy like Alex Ring was in terms of exhibiting those leadership qualities that are more, I guess, stereotypical in nature that you see from a guy wearing an armband. And I don't think it helps that Seba hasn't played to the same level as he did last year. Maybe some of that is, you let some of that stuff slide on the leadership part of it if he's on pace for another 25 goals, but he's just not this year.
Unfortunately, Drusi is a DP in MLS. And when you're in MLS, DP status, you have to be performing. And I think the captain badge has been weighing a bit on him. Because not only does he have to carry this team on his back on the stat side of things, when you have that thing on your arm, you have to be a backbone emotionally for your team. They have to look at you and say, I can go to my captain for anything. And, behind closed doors, we don't know how close these guys are. They're always cooking up together. They're always hanging out, whatever, right? So they must have a great relationship, right? But when we get to see what we see, when they get on the field, and just like you said, you're used to a traditional captain, we don't see those qualities in Drusi. And I don't think that that's knocking on the quality of a player that he is. I just don't think that it's something that he should probably be worried about. You know what I mean? Maybe not worried about is the proper word to say, but I would much rather have Drusi Dior focusing on creating and scoring goals. He also has that weight of the captain badge. I think it'll go perfect to a guy like Alex Ring. Of course, he lost it. He had a fallout, whatever it was, depends who you talk to. Stuber is also there. Cascante had also moments with that captain badge. And you have a young guy coming up like Danny Pereira, who could also fight for that badge in the next coming years. But when you say, what do I think of Drusi Dior as captain, as a player? As a player, I think he's freaking great. One of the best players in CONCACAF, and I'll say that confidently. You know what I'm saying? They're fighting for him from Russia to Austin to River. You know what I'm saying? Like, to this day, people flood his comments. Vente a River, vente. You know what I'm saying? And I think as Austin FC fans, we don't flood those comments enough for him, but that's another conversation. But like I said, as a player, he's great. As a captain, he's not that traditional guy that I think of Sergio Ramos. I keep bringing up Ramos, but he's what I see. He's what I see as a captain.
The stereotypical captain, really.
That's my take.
Yeah, I think as a player, obviously he's taken a step back from where he was last season, but he's had injuries, and I still think he's been pretty okay. As far as the leadership side, I don't necessarily have a problem that he's not the super vocal kind of leader. But, I mean, look, in the media, like, he rarely speaks in press conferences. I think that.
What do you think about that? About him not being vocal enough with the media?
I think he needs to be more vocal. After a tough loss, it's on your captain to come out and say something and explain something. We have plenty of Spanish speakers in the media that one sitting right back there that he would love to, take his questions in Spanish. So I think that's an issue. There was an Instagram post, I think, earlier in the year.
There's been a couple Instagram posts.
Yeah, that I don't think were very captain-like to kind of, take a shot at the fans there. So, yeah, it's not been great. I don't think Driussi is captain thus far.
I think it's tough when Leo Messi, who I don't think is a guy who is super, he doesn't talk a lot, but we've heard more from him in the media with the press conference that he gave and then the Apple TV interview than we have from Seba the entire year. And I think what stands out to me and where I was just kind of like, okay, man, like, you gotta shape up here in this captain's role is at SKC. We're fighting for a goal in the final third, and a call doesn't go his way, and he stays on the ground.
Yeah.
While we still have the ball in a dangerous area, and that's just not something you can do when you're in that leadership role.
On the We're FCTV account on Twitter, it has a lot of reach, I guess you can say, and Driussi follows that page. And he saw that tweet and he liked it. You can go through his likes; it's still on there.
Nice.
And the tweet was referencing at what you just said, like, "Hey, we're in the attack. Fagundes has ball at his feet, and you're on the ground. You stay on the. Not only it's not just that he stayed 1 second, and got up. No, you stayed on the ground and you pouted at the referee. You're like, hey, and you're on your butt, and we're in the attack. Diego has to play it back. You know what I'm saying? And what? Of course, if a player like that likes some tweet out there like that, you mean that, of course, it means that he's not reacting positively to it. So, of course,
he's letting you know he's there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, Driussi sees that. And, I mean, I think that's rightful criticism. You know what I mean? Absolutely. I think, Driussi, you are our captain. We're in the attack. We need to be going forward,
Comes with the territory.
That's what it is. Now, one more thing on Driussi. The few times that we have heard of him in the media, he came after George. George asked him a question about how he plays with Emmy, behind him or whatnot, where they fit. And then I think in that same conversation, Driussi dropped the famous beady beady. You know what I'm saying? He was like, why is there so much beady beady going around? And then we proceed to play poorly, and then you're asking why there's so much beady beady. That's why. And what I've been saying, I'm on Twitter probably more than the average human being should be on Twitter. And I've seen a lot of conversation. I've seen a lot of people kind of just starting to question Driussi Dior more than ever. Obviously, the point of the season where we're at, but I've seen a lot of conversation now like, hey, Driussi, where are you at?
Time, gentlemen.
Adenora at pace now. Confidence is high from Adenora. Gioacchini cuts back inside.
When you create content, that's what you strive to do.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
It is what it is.
We moving right along. Question number 9. We just played you a clip from the St. Louis social media account regarding the match this past weekend. We have seen similar videos from Mazatlan, Vancouver, FC Dallas this year. What are your thoughts on Austin FC's social media team and how they've been doing this season? We will begin with Eric.
Man, I'm probably not. I'm like the least social media savvy, I think, of all of us here. But Austin FC social media, I mean, they've had a few slip-ups from what I understand. They, I know what was it, after a big loss in Open Cup, didn't they? They just kind of like...
CCL. That was when Adrian Healy quote tweeted, run.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So there seems to be a lack of self-awareness, I think, at times with Austin FC's social media. I think they don't always have their fingers on the pulse of the fan base. I think that can be fair to say. That's just kind of my take on it. Again, I might have to cede this one to you guys because I don't follow it as closely.
Well, I'm going to have to give credit to the social media admins that have successfully got a pat on the back from their bosses due to our losses. You know what I'm saying? Because that St. Louis video is pretty funny. The Mazatlan.
So that was posted by the Austin FC?
No. St. Louis. St. Louis.
Okay.
St. Louis.
I was just going to say, wow.
St. Louis. No. St. Louis. Mazatlan also had a video where Diego celebrated that penalty a little bit too heavy, and then they did their thing. I'm sure there's a bunch of other teams, right, that have done their thing. Most recent example, I guess you could say, Austin FC on TikTok, they posted that Camavinga third jersey or whatever, and in the comments, I always read. I'm on these social medias too much, but I like to read the comments. And in the comments, I was reading like a lot of fans were saying, we just conceded 6 goals, and the admin is posting memes. Read the room. And I think that goes to what you're saying, like maybe they're just out of touch sometimes. But I do want to give credit to the social media team because last season they won an award for the most creative or the best kind of stuff like that. And there's been other organizations around the world that have kind of like asked questions like, hey, who have they used as their agency for social media? And they're like, no, we do it all in-house. And they've been very impressed with that. So I do want to give a shout out to them.
The hype videos they do are excellent.
The hype videos
that stuff is top notch.
Best in the league.
I
don't think there's any question about
I think they may be getting nervous when we take heavy losses and they're like, what do we do? How do we turn this fire off? And they make the wrong move sometimes. I mean, that's pointing to what you're saying. But I don't put too much stock in it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I would like them to be a little bit more self-aware, but it is what it is. I mean, it's not my job. It's theirs to worry about.
Well, I don't envy the position they're in this year either with the MLS season pass deal. Those hype videos are required.
Yeah.
And the same for the FC2 ones. So whether you've lost 8 games in a row or not, you still have to put a video out there, and it can't just be, oh, woe is me, we're going to lose again, right?
Yeah.
So, like, they're in the admins are in a tough spot, and the video coordinators and everybody who works on that media team, when the team is playing bad, that makes their job a lot harder.
Exactly.
And so I also hear people, talking about, oh, well, we tweeted out the T-shirt of the month today.
That would have came out regardless.
Exactly. Like, these are things, some of those things don't have anything to do with the actual team. It's the business side of it. Okay. And so, like, again, those people can be put in a tough spot. But I'm also not going to sit here and say that every post that they've made across the various social media sites have been timely.
Yeah, right? I would be horrible at that job, so let me just say that. And, like, really, to be honest, like, yeah, what are you supposed to say in some of those situations? Of course, T-shirt of the day or whatever. Yeah, that's probably a pre-planned post.
Yeah.
So,
do it every month.
I mean, I don't know the social media people personally. They're not like necessarily like my one-on-one friends or whatever. But
in those spaces.
But I know who they are. Like I know their like faces. If I see them in a room, I can point them out and I'll go up to them and say, hey, I've said hi to a lot of their creatives, you could say. But from what I've seen, I mean, they work hard. They're definitely out there grinding. They're definitely out there doing their thing, earning their check. But I really do think that social media job or that admin kind of working for a club in the creative department must be hell because the demand is through the roof. From what I've heard from some people here and there, conversations, a little bit of whispers. I've heard that it's that, especially now with the Apple deal, the amount of content that they got to pump out is very, very high. But like you said, at the end of the day, just be more self-aware. Don't be posting Camavinga memes when we just took 6 versus St. Louis. Just be quiet. Just be quiet.
Yeah. Sometimes silence really is the best.
Yeah, we should talk our shit. Yeah, but we just have.
Thank you. Moving right along. So now this is going to be more of a self-introspect question. I want you guys to discuss your specific podcast, and do you consider yourself to be friendly fan podcast towards the team and the club and try to have up the fans when things are going down, or are you more of an adversarial, critical point of view? This question we can begin with Zach.
I don't know if I'll let you guys speak for your own podcast, but I don't know if any of us are particularly adversarial. We might have to get Jorge up here to talk about that, but just Northend podcast in general, I think we are probably one of the more club-friendly podcasts. I think a lot of it has to do, for me personally, I can't speak for E. I'll let him do that. Let him do that himself. For me personally, with my time as a college basketball player and coach, again, it's not one-to-one to soccer, and it's collegiate and professional. There's a big gap there. but having a little bit more depth of understanding about what goes into being in a program, in a franchise at that level, where 99% of Austin FC fans have never had to rely on wins to put food on the table, right? And I'm not saying that Josh Wolf is wondering where his next meal is coming from if he loses his job, but I think I have a little bit more, again, going back to the word perspective on what all goes into it and having the respect for that process, especially over the length of a full season, right? It's 9-10 months for an MLS season with multiple competitions. And I know it's a cliche, but sometimes like cliches and stereotypes are what they are because there's some real truth there. And it is a marathon, not a sprint, as much as our fan emotions want to take over and be on that always sprinting type of side.
One thing that I like about the Northend pod is the fact that the style that y'all have, it's easy to stay consistent because you guys stick to y'all's takes. I've seen people go from one position in February to another position in April, to another position in where we are now, present August, right?
Some of that's fine.
Some of them is fine. Some of them is fine. I mean, I've not had the same position. I mean, just like we talked earlier, my season expectations were this. Now my season expectations are that. So me, myself, I've changed in that process, right? But yeah, like I said about Northend, I like the fact that you guys always have the same analytical style, point of view, approach. And I think that every pod in the Austin FC community brings something different to the table. And if you're an Austin FC sicko, you appreciate what each individual Austin FC pundit brings to the table because you might like what Landon does at Moon Tower, and you might like what E does at Northend, and you might be a big fan of Bali, but you might be a big fan of George at Futbol and Vivo with his nice little jerseys that he be rocking, and with the little bucket hat too.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that, and also you cannot forget Texas Ring of Fire. RB also has this thing too. I mean, there's so many. And
Verde Pendant, Ho, which is not
the newest one.
Austin,
the newest one, Verde
Phil.
Pendant. My bad, it's the newest one. But yeah, like I said, just real quick, I think everybody brings a different thing to the table. Now, as for Top Flight, I'm not going to speak on the boys, but I want to put them in a category if I can. I sit in the middle, much like how I am right now. And I make show notes for Top Flight Pod. So I pretty much control what we talk about on Top Flight Pod. I don't know if that's a secret or if that's been known, but I make the notes for the shows. Every single episode I've made the notes for. And I know what I can throw to Brian, and I know what I can throw to Bali. You know what I'm saying? And I've been these guys' friends since I was 12, 13 years old. Yeah. I know what gets them off. I know what gets them emotional. I'm sorry. Not in that way. Maybe, yeah.
I'm a child.
Maybe, yeah, because we were hanging out before we found out. But I think B is a realist. I think B is a real. I would categorize B in like the Northend pod kind of like very realistic. Not necessarily pro Wolf, but knowing that he is not the only issue. I would categorize Bali as very emotional.
Speaks from his heart.
You know what I'm saying? I would categorize him as somebody that speaks from his heart and not friendly media, as the question suggests or asks, right? So those are two different sides. You have the realist side and you have the Bali. Everybody knows Bali when he comes on the spaces and when he speaks and on the fan reactions. He's made it all the way to Futbol Americas. They've said, like, what's up with this guy? You know what I'm saying? And where I put myself is I've had people tell me to my face, you're very friendly with this team. And I don't have friends in this team. I was told from the very beginning to not have friends because you don't want to get close to the players because at the end of the day, it'll result in a conflict of interest because you're going to have to criticize these players. Yeah. I'm not trying to protect anybody from the team, but what I do want to protect is the sake of conversation. Because if I let Brian and Bali have it their way, they'll bark over each other all episode.
Sure. So I know that feeling.
So you know what I'm saying? So I like to be the neutral, and if sometimes that's categorized as friendly, so be it. But I sacrifice myself and my take sometimes and my true feelings and emotions for the sake of conversation and the sake of the enjoyment of the people that listen to the Top Flight Pod. Because nobody wants to hear two guys just argue, but they might want to hear it for 2 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like I have the exact same role on Futbol and Vivo. Like, yeah, I think my two co-hosts they're probably more at the opposite. David is just a very angry man, so he's always going to want to be.
I'm not gonna lie. When I watch Futbol and Vivo, I'm like Eric Smith. I'm Eric.
I do all the show notes. I have questions prepared for David, for Jorge.
Hey, pound it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we try and be fair. I think it would be what I would say. Like, we're critical when we need to be, but we're not looking for stuff just to get angry about. We're not like going to nitpick or anything like that. So
There's been spicy moments on Top Flight where we've been like maybe put into, because we're not getting player interviews, we're not getting player content. So what does that tell you? The club doesn't work with us.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
But all the fans work with you.
That's what I'm saying.
That's one thing that's important to me about Top Flight and We Are Austin TV together is that it doesn't matter what your take is, and it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks your take is. You guys give everybody a platform to get things off their chest.
I will take responsibility for the way that things have gone with We're Austin TV and Top Flight. I always reference back to the night of the first St. Louis match. I wish I would have came out and gave Kip Keller more support. Aries ripped him apart. I still think to this day, like, sometimes I'm just sitting on my desk and thinking, damn, I should have kipped up more. You know what I mean? The kid is young. The kid deserved a little bit more support. I mean, mentally it destroyed him now. And you know what I'm saying? And I do take responsibility for being the face, the front of a platform that sometimes absolutely destroys the players. So I understand if the club doesn't want to work with us sometimes. They have worked with us in the past, but I'm completely aware with the situation, and it is what it is.
that's a tough balance to strike, man.
Did that not work? Did that not work? Dale. Dime. Yeah? Excellent. Gentlemen, I will remind you that all of us have families to get to, so please, and all of us want to get back and watch the replay of the St. Louis and the Mazatlan game anyway tonight, so please stick to the last question timing.
I'm sorry.
The last question is just free time. I want you guys to talk about what you expect the rest of the season, like what would be a good ending to the season and anything else that you want to discuss. And please try to keep it within 5-6 minutes. Thank you.
Eric, you go first, please.
I think just making the playoffs and winning a game or two, and I'll be happy. To be honest, I mean, the Diego Figueroa move, I know the players are a little sensitive about saying they've punted on the season. I think Eric Goodman kind of got called out by Ethan Findlay in that pre-match press conference. So I don't think they've punted on the season, but it's hard to argue that losing Diego Figueroa helps this team in 2023 and really any way. I think in 2024, 2025, it will certainly allow for more flexibility. Burrell, just make it happen, man. But for 2023, I think it really is just about kind of damage control. Just make sure you get in the playoffs, win a game or two, and yeah, I'll be happy. And then let's look forward to 2024 and beyond.
A good season for me moving forward. Well, we got to win Copa Tejas this weekend. That has to be in the trophy case, no matter how much beep I'll get for this take.
Who cares, man? We want everything we can get our hands on.
Copa Tejas is like the toy in a cereal box. When you finish the cereal, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you beat Houston, if you beat Dallas, you get the Copa Tejas. If you finish the box of cereal, bro, you're going to get a toy.
It might be like 2-3 seasons before we see a real trophy, so we got
Exactly. Now, I mean, for my take on Copa Tejas, if it's a trophy that we got to win, just go out there and win it. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to get ruined if we don't win Copa Tejas. But win Copa Tejas this weekend, make it into the playoff, just like you said, Eric. Bali always says, you know, why are we going to make it into the playoffs if we're just going to be embarrassed or whatnot? But this playoffs is a whole new beast. It's a best out of 3 series. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what position we're going to be at the end of this next 10-game span. But just to answer it fully, a good season for me. I think I'm going to have to go with you. I mean, the best case scenario would be make it into the playoffs. If we win 1 game, we might win 2. If we win 2, MLS final, I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but
MLS playoffs are weird, man, and the West isn't good. I think we kind of all agree on that. So
Chicharito said it best. Imagínense cosas chingonas. You know, imagine badass things. You know, he said that when Mexico was going into the World Cup and they beat Germany. You know what I'm saying? So making a good run of these 10 games, firmly cementing their position in this playoff picture, and then what happens in the playoff happens.
I think there's a couple checkpoints for me, just like in my own personal fan bubble, and one is Copa Tejas this weekend. Selfishly, interjecting that this is my first away day this coming Saturday, so I'm excited for that, and I don't want to make that 3.5-hour drive back angry.
It's
and upset,
tough when you got to make it.
And wishing I was with my buddies at the Walnut Creek pub, you know. Second, September 24th, Diego Fagundes comes back to town. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to give him a standing ovation, give him all my love. And then he's on the other team. And I want to win that game, not just because it's, the Diego revenge game, but it's also my birthday. So I would like to get 3 points.
Oh, that's a crazy birthday.
And then, it's going to be an emotional day, that's for sure.
They're going to have a good team at that time.
And then they are. And then making the playoffs, just as you guys said. Like, look, I understand that a guy like Bali may not want to go into the playoffs and lose because
you've heard his take. You've heard his take.
You know what's more embarrassing, man? Not making the
playoffs.
But 9 teams make it.
Exactly. And I want to progress as far as this team can, as long as they get into the playoffs. My hair's not on fire, and then I'm legitimately excited for what this offseason could come in shaping the future of this team, because as much as we want to be like, hey, we were in second last year and we should never be below that in an ideal world, of course, but this team is going to fluctuate up and down. When's the last time we had a repeat champion in this league? I think it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So this league is designed to have parity. So we may see some changes, whether it's the salary cap or more DP spots added or a combination of anything regarding the cap and the roster rules. But for now, man, I want to finish this season on a high note, not get embarrassed by being outside of the top 9, because even though, like you mentioned, the ceiling of this team is clearly not higher without Diego. But I think this team should still be expected to make it at least into the top 9, if not the top 7, and not have to play that extra wild card game.
Yeah, definitely. Also, can we fill the positions in the fitness team?
I think they hired...
And in the high performance department?
They hired a new director of sports medicine or something.
I think
there was like a big hire.
There was like 2 or 3 vacancies.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 vacancies. One was filled, so there's probably maybe like 1 or 2 left to be safe. But I think we need to really take care of our injuries moving forward. I mean, Josh Wolf said he had a small conversation with David Tenney at one point or whatever. I mean, that's good. These conversations need to happen like, hey, what's going on? Yeah. Groin injuries, the groin demon, as the fans came up with. If we can take care of that moving forward, that'd be great, because I cannot handle another season of injuries like this.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of, too, like, again, when I'm talking about the perspective of coming from working alongside professionals, these athletic trainers have dedicated their entire lives to making sure that a guy like Josh Wolf doesn't have to determine if Maxi Urruti has a concussion or something like that. So to your point, filling those positions with the right people is still a huge factor in the success of this team, because we want to be closer to 2022 injuries compared to 2023. It doesn't matter who we bring in. If they're all injured, we're not going to win anything.
Concussion in sports are also really serious. They don't play. You see a guy go back in, put the little flashlight in his eye or whatever, and they're like, nah, he's good to play. Like they don't play with that at all.
It's over. It's over.
I think
that's the ending. Gentlemen, we thank you so much for your time in taking part in FCTV tonight. We hope that you enjoyed and that you will join us again in the future. If you would like to have some parting words, Zach, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate the invite, guys. To be on a show called Verde Masters, I surely feel like the apprentice to these 2 guys who have been doing the content thing a little bit longer.
1 year, though. 1 year.
Yeah, and we've been cranking out those episodes, man. 85 is in the hopper, going to be released later today. Actually, 84. Getting ahead of myself. But, yeah, man, it's I appreciate the invite from Jorge and Aries, and to be sharing this little stage with you guys has been a blast.
Thank you. Hernán?
I told you that one night after the fan reactions. When I told you and E, I was like, you guys came out and like, y'all put y'all's footprint in the Austin FC community, and y'all really turned up the content heat. You know what I mean? Like, dang, these guys put together a really good show, and there's not a week that I don't listen to Northend Pod. So, I mean, maybe you can take that with you.
Well, hey, man,
that's actually one of my favorite pods.
I appreciate that, and I mean, I was texting you quotes from Top Flight today, laughing about different
Indiana
things
Jones,
that you were saying. So,
I listen to everybody's. I listen to everybody from Futbol en Vivo to Swoon Tower to Moon Tower, up and down. I mean, because I gotta stay into what everybody's saying. My life revolves around this club, so it's nice to hear what everybody says, because we all have different takes. And I might hear something on one episode, I'm like, you know what? I didn't know that stat. Let me look it up. He's right. Maybe I can use that for the notes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Thank you,
else, my bad?
How about
I would also say the same thing of Futbol en Vivo, is that like you guys have your own, like you compared the kind of the dynamic there with you and Hernán sitting in the middle of 2 guys who are very opinionated, but like I just have this vision of you guys when I'm listening to football in Vivo, is that I'm like sitting across the table from you at like a place like Haymaker and just listening to you guys shoot the stuff, talking about soccer, and like it's a really cool vibe. And to H's point, listening to every piece of Verde content is also something that I do, and so I think all of us would probably agree that we appreciate the huge sphere of content that has just bubbled up around this club.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with everything you guys have said. And yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be here. Verde Masters, man. I mean, the OG Verde Masters right here. This is a real honor.
This is going to be tough to top.
It really is. Hey.
I don't think I said thank you to Georgia. You know, just like you said, thanks to George and Aries for putting this together. You know, George said, like, hey, we got this. Are you down? Like, I could have easily said no, but, you know, everything worked out together. And I was like, you know what? Let's go. And I'm actually glad I'm here. I feel like we need a green blazer.
I think so. We all just won the Masters.
I think we need a green blazer.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
And our jerseys should be retired on that wall.
I think so. We're the original three, right?
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you, George. Shout out to George.
you.
And also, shout out to Gio and Aries.
Thank you so much.
Production top notch.
Thank you. This is Aries Silva, who's been your host for this evening. And before we go, Jorge would like for you to remove the Austin FC shield because he wants the Leon shield to be put on there for the next show. So thank you so much, everyone.
go.
Have a good evening.
Maybe he's not being. This guy. That's cool. That was really good.
Yeah,
That was good, guys.
That was really
Yeah,
good.
that was awesome.